final speaker, Alison from the University of Manchester. Just to, I should have said this at the beginning, but we invited you to give 20-minute or 10-minute papers, so Alice is going to slightly shorter, but not because she hasn't got as much to say. As everyone else.
More space for questions.
Yes,
Yeah.
so be ready for it.
Oh, so nice. Is that going to come back on again automatically, or do we need to? Oh, I know what we do. Hold on.
Did the screen go to sleep?
I think the screen's gone to sleep, isn't it? It should. There we go.
Brilliant.
Yes, yes. Maybe that'll go away.
Everything's gone.
As it? Oh, good. Hello, hi. Yeah, my name is Alison Jeffers. I'm a full-time lecturer here in drama at the University of Manchester. It's slightly odd being in this room because mostly when I'm in this room I'm running around with students doing slightly odd things. But this is, as Jenny says, this was offered as a 10-minute provocation rather than a kind of fully developed paper with a fantastic argument and things like that. It will last about 10 minutes, but actually now I know I have time, I might try and speak a little bit more slowly. And also, to keep to time, I will also be reading, but I will magically make it look as though I'm not reading by the powers of performance, perhaps. So it's called Authority, Authorship and Authorisation, an analysis of the radical potential of community plays in Belfast. I've slightly changed that since I've kind of submitted the proposal. It's a rather grand claim to make in 10 minutes. But maybe there'll be little glimpses of the radical there, I don't know. Anyway, community plays in the UK have traditionally been thought of as a rather conservative form in their avowedly apolitical approach to subject matter and the ways in which they may inhibit the sharing of skills and knowledge among the community participants who get involved. And this is partly because of where they originated in the rural communities of the south of England in Devon, and because of who originated them, playwright and theatre maker Anne Jellicoe, who, according to Jellicoe, whose book Community Plays, published in 1987, became a key document in both the practicalities and the philosophy of the community play. They work best in good, what she calls good, which she interprets as well-connected communities. Community plays in bad communities, and this is a term that she uses, would never work, she suggests, because of their lack of cohesion and connectedness. In other words, perhaps due to their poor levels of social and cultural capital. Jellicoe thought that community plays were also best written, directed and produced by a team of theatre professionals. And as Vas Kershaw says in his analysis of Jellicoe's work, unsympathetic observers of community plays have noted the potential for mystification and manipulation in the relationship, for the professionals are in control of the event in that they write the play, direct it and design it. So the community play form, despite these perhaps rather unpromising beginnings, has enjoyed significant and ongoing popularity in the so-called bad communities of Northern Ireland, which has suffered the double blow of economic precarity and civil sectarian conflict. I want to discuss one play in particular. It's called Crimea Square, and it was set on the Shankill Road in Belfast and performed as part of the Belfast Festival in 2013. And because time is limited, I hope that these images will stand in some way for the cultural, social and political background against which the play took place. So you've got two images here. The one on the left encapsulates the ongoing, perhaps sectarian divisions in Northern Ireland, and these are in the main tourist office in Donegal Place in Belfast, and they have to stock both the British and the Irish flag. I wasn't sure, I just took that photograph very, very quickly on my phone. I was waiting to be challenged, but I don't think anybody noticed me. The other one is actually the view from the Spectrum Centre, from the first row of the Spectrum Centre, where the play was both written and performed at the top, pretty much the top end of the Shankill Road. And what you can see there is a shop selling loyalist souvenirs, mostly UVF paraphernalia and magazines. UVF is the Ulster Volunteer Force, sort of paraphernalia, magazines, badges, all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. Now, I'm not particularly interested in exonerating or rehabilitating community plays, but I am interested in what this form of theatre disturbs or brings to light about participation and authority, especially when it's placed in the precarious setting of inner city Belfast. And I want to think about uneven distributions of authority. And thinking about authority, there's been a lot of research in the last couple of years on authority. There's actually been an authority research network. And they've started to see the concept of authority as more finely tuned and possibly a more precise political tool than the rather blunt instrument of power or power. I'm just going to keep saying power because I can't say it any other way, but you understand what I mean. So people without power may nevertheless have authority. Refugees, for example, might be thought to have very little power, but they can speak with authority based on their experiences. So unlike power, you either have it or you don't. Authority allows us to think more clearly about distributions of knowledge through time and across place, and the ways that deficits of knowledge can inhibit power. And I'm particularly taken by a lecturer and academic in sociology, Claire Blencoe, and she talks about uneven distributions of authority, and I think it's useful here because she highlights the ways that authority is granted to experts and opened up the question of whether, as she says, participation practices can be technologies for redistributing authority. So in the case of Crimea Square, we might answer, well, yes and no to that rhetorical question. So I would argue that the traditional community play model, a la Angelico, largely conforms to what Blencoe calls a widening participation model, whereby participatory processes can expand access to the kinds of experience that are normally the preserve of experts and those with the means to achieve specialist status. Oh, I've gone out of sync, have I? Sorry, yes, I beg your pardon. Specialist status. So the emphasis is on experience. Getting involved, having a go. It can make a difference to the lives of those individuals who participate, but it leaves existing power structures fundamentally unaltered. Its other downside is that it has the potential to confirm the importance and authority of the artists, theatre makers, designers, and others who are working with non-expert groups. And I would say this may well have been the case with the 35 community actors, many of the 35 community actors who got involved with the project. They were able to have an experience of acting, and some spoke about getting the acting bug, because I interviewed a number of them afterwards. But without access to the special structures that would allow them to develop this skill, it was unlikely that many would be able to pursue this ambition. However, unlike Jellicoe's model of working with professional playwrights, Crimea Square was co-written by 4 community members who were part of a local history group called SASH, which stands for Shankill Area Social History. I'll say a bit more about that title in a minute. So when researching this project, I began to see these 4 community writers as experts by experience, an idea developed in mental health settings whereby self-help groups become what Noorani calls crucibles for learning. So this was a different model to that of the actors, and one that Blencoe might call transforming reality, or changing perceptions about what is important, what makes things happen, and thus changing ideas about who has participated in such happening. So just, I've written I want to conclude. I feel like I've hardly started, but I'm getting sort of towards the second half. Looking at the terms of the title of this provocation, so looking at authority, authorship and authorisation from the point of view of the way that the play was written. So thinking actually of them in reverse order, thinking about authorisation first of all. The community writers had to authorise the playwright and community artist, Joe Egan, to work with them to write the play, but this was not a simple process. Egan was born in London, brought up in Dublin, and identifies herself as a socialist and a feminist from a Catholic background. In other words, there was a huge political distance between Egan and the other writers in SASH. And what I'll explain now about SASH, although it stands for Shankill Area Social History, it could be considered a rather provocative name, in fact, because SASH, of course, is the main party political song based on the orange sash that is worn by loyalist Orange men on the 12th of July. So it's an interesting, rather sort of provocative title for them to choose for their group. And it's possible to see why Egan might have been at actually quite a considerable distance from the people in SASH. One of them explained some of their differences. He said, "I would be challenging Jo on the writing. She's not a loyalist, she's not a unionist, not a Protestant," he said prod, but I put Protestant there, "not for the Queen. However, in allowing her to work with them on this project, the writers, I'm suggesting, authorised the challenge of working with an outsider who might disrupt their historical narratives and political positions. This process of authorisation set up the conditions in which all the writers bartered their respective sets of authorial knowledge. Egan offered insights into theatrical form and technique, the four community writers bringing characters and ideas based on the shape of their lives and the histories on which the play was based." Secondly, thinking about authorship. When I interviewed the writers, it was about 9 months after the performance, and what I noticed was still very much a sense of ownership and pride on a number of levels, but particularly on beginning to know and understand their own history through their growing expertise in handling archival material and their authority over the stories that they were discovering. It's important to know, and I didn't put this in here, but a big initiative in Northern Ireland at the moment is the opening of Prony in Belfast with the public records of Northern Ireland, and the way that those records have kind of opened up a number of opportunities for real sort of historical research and archival research, and they're a very open access resource. In the process of becoming experts or authorities on their own histories and being able to perform that expertise to a wider community through the play, I would suggest the writers develop not only a sense of personal confidence, but also that played a part in generating a sense of social confidence, creating a space in which their expertise allowed them to look out beyond the usual received histories. The process of dramatising this material enabled them to appreciate their history was more fragmented than they might have imagined before they began their own minute investigation, embedded with contradictions and paradoxes, and this kind of troubled their authority as well. So just to give you a short example, they discovered in the archives an Irish-speaking Catholic policeman who in the early 20th century had lived on the Shankill, which is a traditionally loyalist Protestant area. But rather than ignoring this inconvenient truth, they showed him refusing to sign the Covenant in 1912. This was a document mainly signed by Northern Protestants to protest against the proposed imposition of Home Rule in Ireland in 1912. But they also showed that he didn't not sign it. Is that correct? He did not sign it because he was a Catholic, but because he thought his service to the community as a policeman was a big enough statement about his sense of belonging. So in the play there's a moment where he points to his uniform and says, "Do you see that? That's as loyal as it gets. Any fool can sign a name. What does that stand for?" And he points to his uniform again. "This stands for a whole lot more." Finally, thinking about authority. In writing the play, the writers demonstrated their authority over their community's history, enabling them to develop a sense of confidence in projecting and communicating a complex set of narratives, not only to their audience, but also to themselves. They weren't simply learning how to write a play, but potentially creating a new cultural and social reality, political reality potentially, one in which they felt they had a stake in cultural activities from which they had previously felt excluded. So one of the writers summed up the cultural impact of being involved in the play when he talked about going to the Lyric. The Lyric is Belfast's main theatre. What he said was, "This whole community feels the Lyric isn't for them. They get the idea it'll be full of Catholics and nationalists and middle class people, and that's fact, that's the way it is. I still think that now, but it wouldn't stop me from being involved in it. I have the confidence to go now." Jellicoe couldn't understand how a community play might work in an unconnected inner city environment, although I think she understood instinctively how such an activity might be useful there. We might think of Crimea Square as a community play, of course, but more importantly, I would suggest we think of it as an exercise in developing authority, in gaining control of the authorship of a community's history, and in gaining the confidence necessary to authorise challenges to that history. Thank you very much.